So you want to buy a BMW, but you want to know which is the worst engine available for the car brand. Maybe you don't want the high performance car, but you want something reliable that's not going to break the bank. Well, I have the top 5 list of cars, the most unreliable engines that BMW has ever made. And if you avoid these engines, chances are whatever car it is you choose will have lots of fun and hopefully limited time in the shop. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with exoticcarplayplace, and today. So the first engine on my list that qualifies as one of the most unreliable, the top 5 most unreliable BMWs ever made, falls to the S85 V10 engine that produces 507 brake horsepower. That engine could be found in the E60, E61 M5s, which is the touring car version, and the E63 M6. Of course, those cars all share that spectacularly awesome sounding V10 engine. Yeah, they sound like a Formula One car. Great engines to drive. They're magnetic and they're electrifying when you punch the throttle, and they make some of the best sounds ever to come out of that wonderful German car brand. However, they're not without their faults. And how's this for a list of issues? How about rod bearings that you need to replace every 50 to 80,000 miles? How about a Vanos system that dies constantly? Or Vanos lines, Vanos pumps, any of the related Vanos, which is your variable valve timing system, that dies as well. And let's not forget as well, the wonderful S85 V10 motor drinks oil like it's going out of style, like a drunk at a brewery. The next engine, number 2 on my list for most unreliable BMW engines, goes to that magnificent N62 engine, basically the V8 of either 4.4 or 4.8 liters displacement. That was found in a whole host of different cars, from 5 Series to 7 Series and everything just about in between, shared that V8 architecture. Now that was a really problematic engine. And you want a list of problems that are found in that car or that engine? How about smoky engines? That's the worst thing that you'll typically find, or one of the most common failures in these cars, smoky engines. Why? Because the valve guides have little seals around them, and those seals go gobble gobble and they're gone, poof. So you have bad valve guide seals. Well, those seals are what essentially keeps, when there's vacuum, positive and negative pressures in the engine, those seals prevent oil from passing up the valve guides, up the valves, and of course into the combustion chamber. When those seals are toast, you basically have a lot of oil burning going on. And these engines are very typically oil burners for that very reason. Now, excess carbon's another failure mode for these cars, leaving all that gunk inside the engine, of course, needing frequent cleanups. Leaking valve cover gaskets is another ugly one there. Upper timing chain gasket leaks. How about the alternator bracket gasket? What a ridiculous part, but yes, that one too. And the other infamous coolant transfer pipe. So it's that pipe that is made out of plastic that unfortunately, when it fails, and it's not if, it's definitely when it fails, it's almost an engine out job. It's a huge job in terms of labor. It's not the part so much that costs you a lot of money. It's the labor to get at it, the access to the coolant pipes. And depending on the car and the version of that V8 engine, some are worse than others. But it's that coolant pipe that costs you an arm and 3.5 legs to repair. How about also the secondary air system on the early cars, the 4.4s, coolant reservoirs that either crack or leak. And so at the end of the day, this V8 engine is really what put a sour taste in a lot of previous owners' mouths, really effectively, because either the car was leaking oil or it was leaking antifreeze or was just shooting smoke out the back end. It sustained a lot of issues. Now there's a lot of happy owners out there utilizing cars with these very engines in there. And a lot of people that swear by just, yeah, I've done the maintenance and they're always good and I've never had any problems. And that in fact is entirely true. There are a lot of great cars out there with these engines. Unfortunately, everything I listed here is a very, very high probability of occurring on one of these generations or one of these engines. So the V8 engine was not really well liked. And that, of course, that was spread out. That V8 engine was popular through a lot of models. And again, like I said, X Series, 5, 7 Series, you name it. And unfortunately, it was a problem through and through a lot of the different lineups. My third choice for the worst engine in BMW history goes to the wonderful inline-4, either 1.6 or 2 liter turbo diesel engine, the wonderful N47. Well, what goes on with the N47? Again, it's one of these engines that a lot of owners swear by them and feel that they love the way they drive, the great little torquey power band. But unfortunately, sadly enough, a lot of owners have sustained significant dollar repair bills because of catastrophic engine failures due to timing chain issues. Timing chains that stretch and snap. And when that happens, unfortunately, it is just, there's a lot of times there's very little warning. Sometimes you'll hear a rattling or an unusual metallic sound in the engine compartment at idle or driving along. But unfortunately, by that time, it's almost too late. You want to get the car into the shop. Really, unfortunately, what ends up happening is if you don't capture those sounds or you manage the issue soon enough, or sometimes it happens suddenly, what ends up happening is valve and piston meet inside the engine, which results in a catastrophic engine failure, and the engine stops outright, sometimes at 100 miles per hour on the highway in the Autobahn. That's the last thing you need, is an engine seizing up, locking up your wheels at highway speeds. Very dangerous condition, but it can also happen at idle, so it's very unpredictable. Sad part is, it's up against the firewall. You can't even check it, as a preventative measure. You actually have to take the engine out of the car and do a full-on replacement. It's a commitment. It's dollars and cents, and it's not cheap dollars and cents. Big dollar repair. One other problem with that engine, of course, is the spring in the wastegate, and sometimes it sticks, causing boost leak, and then of course a reduction in power, and of course fuel economy goes out the toilet as well. Now unfortunately, this N47 can be found in a whole host of different generations and versions, from the E90 to E91s, F20s, F30s, E81s, E82s, E87s, 88s, and many of the mini cars as well. The minis that utilize that same engine will unfortunately see the same fate. And it's a very sad state because it's a great engine, great powertrain otherwise, but the big problem is that timing chain issue. The fourth engine on my list goes out to the wonderful turbo inline-4 gasoline engine that is called the wonderful N20. And this comes, the majority of, the issues were in the 2012 to 2014 range. Into 15, it kind of depends when the cutoff of the manufacturing was going on. But it was also a 1.6 to 2 liter, depending on the generation and all that. So certain things that you would find in that engine: rattles and hums, again associated with a possible timing chain impending failure. Sludge buildup, oil pumps failed, timing chains break, premature valve guide wear. That was a very common issue in these as well, unfortunately, which meant burning oil, seeing it at the tailpipe, misfires, revs bouncing around, and other fuel system related issues, unfortunately, were not uncommon in these cars. The N20 had a whole host of issues. Now, I hope this isn't totally skewed. These are just very common failures that are noted under this engine setup. But in reality, there's a lot of these engines out there because it was in a whole host of different vehicles. And so a lot of it might be skewed just because of the sheer numbers of vehicles that found themselves with this engine powering them, such as E89 Z4, F30 320, F34 320 as well, F10 520, 220, 125, the F30 328, 428, 528, and 228. You'll notice the theme. The 20s or the 28s in that mid, 2000, 12 to 14 range. It's the 28 series or the 20 series. Those are the cars with the gas engines that you had to be aware of. Those are the ones that weren't all that reliable. And my fifth choice for most unreliable engines in the BMW history goes out to the magnificent M3 in 2000 to 2006, which was the S54. Happened to be a 3.2 liter inline-six producing about 332 horsepower. These found themselves with a whole host of issues too. Now, some of them might be owner related. You start getting these cars handed down to multiple owners, neglect, abuse because it's an M car. Everybody wants to rev the car to the moon. And sometimes you would find yourself with problems like rod bearing, outright catastrophic failures, not unlike the S85 or S65 engines, Vanos problems, crankcase ventilation related issues, coolant leaks galore because the whole coolant system was made out of plastic, like T-stat, radiator, hoses and the like, would leak like a sieve. And if neglected, of course, you wound up with a head gasket leak because it burned a head gasket. Another big dollar fix. And of course, one of the last things was hard starting at times. So fuel-related issues, of course, as well. Now, that's not taking away from the fun factor. A lot of these cars that I just listed, or the cars that you'll find with these drivetrains in, are really great cars to drive, hence ultimate driving machine. Unfortunately, a lot of them have had significant issues, and these are my top 5 list of the worst engines available on the BMW lineups. So I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. That is the summary. Make sure you drop some comments below. I know there's going to be some haters, but really, guys, I'm just trying to look out for you guys and your best interest. You're a used car shopper. You want to find a good, reliable car. Here's some engines that you might want to avoid if reliability is the first thing on your priority list. So I really hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. Make sure you share it with your friends, like, thumbs up, and don't forget to tap that little subscribe button down below, as well as that little notification bell as well. You make sure you hit that. You'll know when the next great video hits. Hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.